Hi everybody, welcome to this Python tutorial in the CMU Sandbox. Today we're going to look at how to code a rock, scissors, paper player versus computer game. We're going to look at how to get text input from the keyboard. We're going to look at how to loop an unpredictable number of times. And we're going to continue to explore function design in computer programs. So let's get started. Here is my program. It's just one line long. It's a call to a function which I'm calling main. So let's have a look at the definition of a main function. Its purpose is just to run the game, basically. Okay. So when we run the game, we need to keep track of how many rounds the player won and how many rounds the computer won. And we're going to say that the winner is the first player to win 3 rounds. Okay? So here we've got a game loop, and in the game loop we're going to play a round, we're going to determine who won the round, and then we're going to update the player count depending on who won the round. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. First of all though, this for loop is looping 5 times. Is that necessary? Let's say that the player won the first round, the player won the second round, and the player won the third round. The player won the game. We don't need to loop 5 times. Let's look at a different scenario. The player won the first round, the computer won the second round, the computer won the third round, and the computer won the fourth round. The computer wins. And it took 4 rounds to do that. We didn't need to loop 5 times. So in this situation, a for loop is inappropriate. What we should do is take advantage of a while loop. Okay? So while a condition is true, we're going to do some stuff. So let's think about what this condition might be. While the player count is less than 3 and the computer count is less than 3, we're going to play the game. This is the condition to keep us inside the game loop. Now in the loop, we're going to play around, and this function is going to allow the human player to play a hand, the computer to play a hand, and it will determine which player won the round. And it will return that data to our main function. It will return some data, and the main function will grab it in a variable. Okay, so this function is very useful. It's going to find out who won the round and send back the information. The information, by the way, will either be this text player or this text computer. So when we know the contents of this variable, if the contents is the text player, we're going to update the player count. Otherwise, we'll update the computer count. And the last thing we'll do in the main function, when the game loop has finished, we're out of the loop, we're going to display the winner. Now to display the winner, this function needs to process this data. But this data is local to the main function only. Display winner function cannot see these variables. So the main function has to say, okay, display winner, I'm going to give you some data. Please process the data and display the winner. So we're going to send some data to this function, and it will figure it out. Alright, so this is my driver program. Now let's go on and code some of the helper functions in this game. We're going to code the play round function, the display winner function, which takes two pieces of data to process, and there might be some other functions too. So let's jump into the playround function. This function is going to get some data from the keyboard. This is the human player. We're going to use a built-in function called getTextInput, and we're going to assign the keyboard data to a variable. This is a local variable in the playround function. So this is the player's number. The computer's number is just going to be a random number. Now it could be that they are the same. Maybe the player's number is 1 and the computer's number is 1. That's a draw. So we need to ask them to play another hand. We don't know how many times they're going to have to do that. So we can use a while loop again. While the player hand is the same as the computer's hand, just do it again. And we're going to keep doing that until they get a different value. So let's say that pnum is 1, cnum is 3. Yes, we're out of the loop. We can continue. So we're going to call a function called checkWin, which is going to look at this data, which is stored in these variables. It's going to look at that data and it's going to return the result, which is going to be either computer or player. Now, of course, these variables are local to the playround function. So guess what? If checkWin wants to process them, we need to send the data to the function. The function will take the data and process. So actually what happens here is when we reach this line of code, we call checkWin, and checkWin wakes up. And checkWin says, oh my goodness, 2 pieces of data are coming. They're both integers. What? I need to call these numbers something so that I can process them. So the checkWin function definition says, okay, I'm going to call the first number phand and the second number chand. And that will allow me to take the data, assign it to a variable, and then we can process the data. Okay? So that's what we're doing here in the definition of the checkWin function. It processes 2 pieces of data. That's what it does. And its purpose is to return player or computer. This is the purpose of the checkWin function. The checkWin function is going to return some information. Okay? So let's put that back and let's have a look at the... Oh, by the way, before we continue, I need to make something clear. getTextInput, actually, when you press 1 on your keyboard, this is what happens. It's text. It's not really a number. But cnum is a random integer. For example, it's an integer. So this gives us text, and this gives us an integer. We cannot compare them like this. It won't work. What we need to do is turn this into an integer. So what I'm going to do is force all of this to become an integer. That should turn the text into an integer. Then we've got an integer here, and then we can compare these values. Okay? So a small point in the playround function. Alright, let's have a look at checkWin. The checkWin function needs to determine the winner. So let's create a variable to store that result, and we will assign it a empty string. Now we need to consider the logic of determining the winner. Remember, phand and chand are different. We're never going to see 1 and 1. That's never going to happen. We might see 1 and 2, and we might see 1 and 3. We might see 2 and 3. We might see 3 and 2. Okay, but they're never going to be the same. So if p hand is 1, let's look at that condition. If p hand is 1, if c hand is 2, so p hand is 1 and c hand is 2, the winner is the player, because rock beats scissors. Else, it means c hand is 3, right? If c hand is 2, otherwise c hand must be 3, because it can't be 1. Does that make sense? So I'm going to leave you to figure out the logic for the rest of this function. See if you can figure that out to determine the winner. And don't forget, the purpose of check-win is to return the answer. So don't forget to do that at the end of the check-win function. Now display winner, if we go back into our main function, when we call display winner, we send it the player count and the, not count, computer count. Thus, this function will take this data. So when we call the function, display winner wakes up. It says, 2 pieces of data are coming. I'm going to call the first piece of data p point, player point, and I'm going to call the second piece of data computer point. Okay, so it just wakes up, it sees the data coming, and it says, okay, I need to give it a name. Okay, all it does is create a label, and then if p point is greater than c point, else. And that is rock, scissors, paper in Python.